Hi there, everyone. Welcome to The Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's August 7th. There's that lovely saying that goes something like, one man's weed is another man's wildflower. This is especially true in the case of Queen Anne's lace. In the Facebook group for the show, listener Danny Perkins shared how much he enjoys allowing Queen Anne's lace to rain all over his garden. I feel the same way, but others do not. And I respect that. I think one of the reasons I personally enjoy Queen Anne's lace is because it reminds me of baby's breath, which does not like to return as a perennial in my garden. On the other hand, this year I started growing valerian, and I would say that that is another alternative to baby's breath, and it's similar to Queen Anne's lace. So there's another option. Another charming characteristic of Queen Anne's lace is that it's a member of the carrot family. And if you crush the leaves and the stem, you'll notice a carrot odor. And here's a fun fact. The Romans ate Queen Anne's lace as a vegetable. And here's an herbal application. The root juice of Queen Anne's lace is wonderful for treating itchy skin. Here's today's brevities. It's the anniversary of the death of Andreas Marggraff, who died on this day in 1782. Marggraff was a German chemist. In 1747, he figured out a way to isolate glucose from raisins. The same year, he announced his discovery of finding sugar in beets, and he came up with a way to use alcohol to extract it. It wasn't until 1802 that the first beet sugar refinery opened its doors and the modern sugar industry was born. And today in 1840, the world lost a wonderful physician and botanist by the name of Henry Perrine. As a botanist, Perrine was first recognized for his work with quinine as a cure for malaria. Perrine also served as a U.S. ambassador to the Yucatan. As a result of his position, Perrine was able to bring many tropical plants to the United States. In 1838, the United States Congress gave Perrine a land grant, which he used to establish a place to grow plants in the Florida Keys. At the time, Florida was a territory. Perrine believed that the area offered the perfect climate for creating what he hoped would be one of the great botanical gardens of the world. Perrine's work was showing promise until this day in 1840. He had a radical neighbor named Jacob Houseman who had gathered a small militia and had offered Congress a deal. He would kill every American Indian in South Florida, and they would pay him $200 per body. Congress never got that letter, but the Seminole Indians in Florida had learned of Houseman's plan. It was no wonder then that on this day they attacked Indian Key, but their chief target, Houseman, had escaped. Dr. Perrine could hear the attack happening outside his house. He quickly tucked his wife and children into a turtle crawl beneath their house, and he slid a chest of his Mexican seeds over the trap door in order to conceal them. When the opportunity presented itself, Dr. Perrine spoke to the Indians in Spanish, identifying himself as a friend and a doctor. The Indians left, but they returned later that evening. They chased Perrine to the cupola of his house, where they killed him, and then they set the house on fire. Perrine's wife and children survived the entire ordeal in the turtle crawl, making their way through a narrow tunnel to the sea alongside the turtles. Perrine's work lives on in the botanicals he brought to Florida, specifically the avocado, the key lime, the mango, and numerous agave. And today is the birthday of the Indian geneticist M.S. Swaminathan. Instead of pursuing medicine, which was his natural inclination in college, he decided to pursue degrees in agriculture. Swaminathan felt he could best help his country by solving the food problem. On January 4th, 1968, Swaminathan gave a lecture at the Indian Science Congress where he first coined the term Green Revolution. He wanted to marry technology development and dissemination with ecology. Today, Swaminathan believes that every person has the right to have food. This belief was forged during what he calls India's ship-to-mouth existence, when India had to wait for ships to bring food. The journey from ship to mouth to seeing food as a right is a huge paradigm shift, one which Professor Swaminathan has so humbly led. In Unearthed Words, here's a quote about August from Henry David Thoreau. In August, the large masses of berries, which, when in flower, had attracted many wild bees, gradually assumed their bright, velvety, crimson hue, and by their weight again bent down and broke their tender limbs. And here's a little quote about the weather from John Ruskin. Summer is delicious. Rain is refreshing. Wind braces up. Snow is exhilarating. There's no such thing as bad weather, only different kinds of good weather. Today's book recommendation is The Evening Garden, Flowers and Fragrance from Dusk Till Dawn by Peter Lower. This book reveals the history and science of the night garden. The topic of night-blooming plants has always fascinated gardeners. This book came out in the early 90s and was advertised to gardeners who found themselves working long hours during the daytime, which equated to little time for gardening. The book gives information about the history and the raising of night-blooming plants. You can get copies of this book on Amazon using the link in today's show notes for as little as 25 cents. Today's garden chore is to add another layer of mulch to your summer garden. Just adding an extra layer of mulch helps keep the roots of your plants cooler and more moist during the hot weather. In turn, that helps to lower the stress level of your plants during this time of year. And it's also a good time to cover up some of the unsightly areas in your garden, spots where you've divided things or harvested, or you can also refresh areas where your mulch has decomposed. Don't forget that organic mulch is continuously decomposing in your beds, which in turn helps feed the soil. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. Here's a little story about the New Zealand botanist Lucy Cranwell, who was born on this day in 1907. Imagine yourself at 21. What were you doing? Well, at 21, Lucy was appointed the curator at the Auckland Museum. Barely more than a child herself, she had a special talent for engaging young students. Lucy herself had an excellent teacher growing up in the form of her father, who was a trained nurseryman. It's no wonder, then, that Lucy loved exploring and being in the field. During her days at the University Field Club, her peers knew her as the strongest and fastest walker at the university. And one of her dearest friends was the botanist Lucy Beatrice Moore. The two Lucys went on many botanical field trips together, and it was a common practice during these trips to sleep out in the open in a sleeping bag. There were many mornings when the women found themselves waking up covered in frost. Lucy served as the curator in Auckland for 14 years. During that time, she collected over 4,000 plants for the herbarium. And she created something that she called botany trots, a term I absolutely adore. Botany trots were these little botanical excursions for the children of New Zealand. Isn't that sweet? Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org. And be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.